All right, good afternoon, everyone. Here I have my 2018-2019 sketchbook. It's been a little bit since I showed you my last two sketchbooks. So just to start with, stickers, of course, got me. And of course, because Sarah and I visit all sorts of different breweries. We got Nightshade, we got Newburyport Brewing Company, we got Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Backside, just a couple more stickers. We went in the fall to Corn Maze in Vermont. Went to the Portland Museum of Art, and then there's a cool store in Kennebunkport that we usually check out whenever we're there. So let's get this guy open. I tried to set up the camera so that you can see most of the sketchbook. I still don't have a nice tripod or stand to do this with. So I'm trying my best with what I got. So what we have over here, actually around my birthday, for my birthday last summer, Sarah took me to the Red Sox. Of course, a bunch of our friends went as well. Then we wound up going to the Crane Estate in Massachusetts in Ipswich, Mass, for a 20s lawn party. Lots of fun. I will have my Harvard Art Museum ticket. And then here's that first page that you see when you open it up. Of course, all the different places you can reach me at. But when we were in Newburyport, we went in an antique store and I found these really cool old printing blocks. I guess that's what you could call them. I don't know the exact terminology. So I found 3 of them, and they're for as far as I could tell, did a little research, they're for a defunct press, like a book press, prints books, I think from Massachusetts. And I picked them up because they were cheap, and also because I live on Riverside Drive, and I thought it would be fitting if I used them to mark my book, or mark my sketchbook every time I start it. It's kind of cool. These are very similar. This one's a little bigger. It looks like some sort of man or nymph playing a flute. I think we have a fire down here. I can't really see what that says. I'm sure I could look it up online. Of course, to start with, we'd purchased some plants. Both these plants died, so I got this one for $2 and this one for $7. Rescued them from the dying plant rack, and unfortunately, I was not able to save them. So I started the sketchbook just over a year ago, by 2 days. And this is when we were in Reraw in Portsmouth. Just to sketch is Sarah, my beautiful, lovely girlfriend. And she's in this cool shirt that has sort of a ruffled edge and then white patterns on black, white embroidery, I guess, on black. And then, of course, there is her necklace. I shouldn't say, it's from her family, I think, from her mom's earrings, something like that. Then over here we have, what was really interesting about this sketch was these 2 people in the background sat down and then got up, and 2 people that looked just like them replaced them, which is kind of weird. Felt like I was in the Matrix for a moment. And then this sketch is from the 29th, so I actually did this sketch the day before we went to Reraws. And this was of Fenway, so he sat, and Red Sox won. I forget who they were playing. Who were they playing? Let's see. Minnesota Twins. So they won. But we were way out in the bleachers. It was hot. I sweated right through everything I had. Drank a lot of water, several beers, and was able to come up with a pretty decent sketch. I think my favorite part was drawing the little people down here. I didn't fill in the entire field. I guess there should be a third baseman. But But yeah, it was a good sketch. Difficult to capture the crowd, so I just made some gestural marks, try to summarize what I saw. Lots of reds and blues in the crowd. Beautiful day, slightly cloudy, but very hot. And then we went up to Rye Beach. I did some sketches of people at Rye Beach. And then on August 5th, we went to the Crane Estate, and my mom got us not uniforms but outfits to wear for the Roaring 20s party. It was a lot of fun, lots of people there. This is probably my favorite little sketch in the entire book right here. This guy, I feel like I captured his chin and his neck and his nose perfectly. And then this is what my mom was wearing. Not the best sketch of my mom, but it was a sketch. Then we went to Newburyport Brewing Company. Got myself a flight, spent a little time sketching that. And then of course we were always going, and the times change a little bit. I go back and forth here on occasion, just filling in what space I have. But I like the lead in from these beers into sitting at the countertop for Portland Pie trivia. We got, this guy's a regular. I've seen him quite a few times. We're regulars as well. We go a decent amount. Not as much now because we've moved out of Manchester. But if you know the McElroys, kind of looks like Justin McElroy. Yeah, this was fun. I don't know, spent about 45 minutes on it. I think probably more than that just because I penciled it in and then I went over it in ink. Towards the end of last summer, or I guess the middle. It certainly felt like the end. It's only a week away. I went down to Harvard when Sarah had a business convention, and I went to Crema Cafe, which I was really enjoying. And felt like a local spot, a lot of traffic, so I could overhear what people were talking about. And sketched myself blueberry muffin on, looks like the second day. So my first day I had tuna sandwich. All right, let's try this again. Seems like it cut out there right at this part. So going back to the Crane Estate, Sarah hung out with my parents while I went and sketched some old vehicles. I had a lot of fun on this. I spent maybe 45 minutes on it. Probably could have spent longer on it, but this car right here wound up driving off. One of my favorite parts of this sketch is this little tent of people of all the drivers at the far corner. And while I was sketching this, there were people coming over and sitting down in the cars and getting photographs and everything. So I had to thankfully I had enough material to work with that I could sketch different areas while people were in front of the vehicles. But it was kind of annoying, but that's part of sketching in public. Some random sketches, I don't know from when. And then we spent a lot of time in Kennebunk at Sarah's parents' place. And we're usually in this room. The wall and the floors are not as yellow as they are right here. But I tend to, when I'm using watercolors at least, oversaturate things. Working on that, trying to get better. Usually when people flip through this sketchbook, one of their favorite pages is this ant page. And I did have a lot of fun with this. I was practicing stippling, different watercolor techniques. And we got, this ant came out really good. He's kind of a trompe-l'oeil. Wow, I just butchered that French probably. But, trick of the eye. Ant, he looks like he's right on top of the page. And at this point, I was like, oh, maybe I can fill a sketchbook full of different animals on each page. That didn't happen, but you'll see my bears later that I did put on the page. This is a Lithops succulent. I had him for about a year, and then I overwatered him and killed him. I swear I'm not bad at taking care of plants, but, I've learned my lesson. And then here are some sketches from when Sarah and I went down to Chicago at the end of last summer. And We went to the Chicago Art Museum. I forget the exact name, because I have so many names in my brain. And here I was looking at Homer, Winslow Homer. We got Sargent, and then we have a bust. And over here on the side, I've written down all the names of other paintings that I guess I would have liked to have sketched, but at least ones that I found inspiring. So I'll probably put those along with the other ones later on in the book in the blog post. Looks like the next day we went to the Natural History Museum. Sarah's a little tired at this point, so we sat and we got a coffee and a little snack to have. I sketched the Patagotites in Maiorum skeleton. I don't think it's a complete fossil. A lot of the fossils aren't complete. You know, they film in with what they know based on other skeletons that they've found. And with the bones that they have that are real. Drew myself a mask. There's a really cool wall of masks. I think that would be something interesting to have in someone's house. Of course, probably pretty creepy. We got a manatee. When we go to museums a lot, I really liked the fake animals and the stuffed animals because animals move around so much. It's nice to just have steady ones to draw. But Sarah dislikes them because they get kind of boring quickly. And I understand that if you're just looking at animal after animal and you're not sitting down and drawing them. So I sketched these quickly, and then later on in the day we sat on the riverside and I sketched out, roughed out a cool parking garage that was across the river. I mean, it wasn't a complete sketch, it was never meant to be. It was just something to doodle. And of course, because I went back and forth to fill in pages, this is from our recent camping trip. We went to Diana's Bath, which you'll see later on in the sketchbook on the first day, but here we went up to Arethusa Falls. I'm not the best watercolorist. I feel like I could have done this view more justice with oils. Like this was, I was up on a ledge up above looking down, and this was close, and this was like middle ground, and then this was a little farther back, and then this was very far away. I just feel like I could have established that depth a little more. Here we have some bears. This was after I did the ant sketch, and I think my brown bear wound up turning out the best, and I think it was the first I did. I think the reference photo I took had some really nice play of lights and darks on it, so it was the easiest to replicate. Rare blank page. I really tried to fill up this sketchbook. And then over here, at the end of last summer, it was my friend John's birthday, and I'd known him for 8 years. I've known him 9 years now, and I wanted to draw a comic for his birthday. I never really finished it, but it sort of tells our story of when we met in 2010, and we wound up having an intro to sculpting class with a pretty intense professor who demanded that we draw a lot of seed pods and then sculpt a lot of seed pods. So we wound up doing a wire sculpture, a like Sculpey or clay sculpture, and then a plaster sculpture that we had to chisel out. So you can see her here getting more and more demanding. So yeah, never finished it. Maybe one day I will. And then at the end of the summer, our friend Sean invited us up to his family's cabin on the Great Sacandaga Lake in northern New York. 1st of September, so right after I'd been back to school. It's still nice out, and each year they have a ring of fire where they light fires around the edge of the lake, so that people, it's pretty cool to see. So I sat here for a little bit. This tree actually isn't in this location. I think it was in a different spot, but I started with this, screwed up, said, you know what, forget that. And then I went to drawing this guy. And then the next morning at the end of the trip, I was sitting down, people were eating, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll draw an empty can that had been left out from the night before. I try to do 1 or 2 pumpkin sketches every year. They seem to come around Halloween or Thanksgiving. So I did a watercolor last year. And then we always tend to have some sort of bouquet of flowers on the table. There's actually one right in front of me now that's also dead, but this bouquet was dying, and I thought the dead flowers were really interesting. And I spent too much time on this, probably 2 different sessions. I sketched it, inked it, went over in watercolors, and then inked it again to try to make things more apparent. I don't know, I think it turned out all right. It was I was really studying like how muddy can I make things but still distinct. And then I wound up buying some red and blue markers, and I did a self-portrait. My hair was long, not the best self-portrait, kind of looks like me. My hat was misadjusted. I was looking in a mirror, not from an actual photograph. So I had some adjustments with the chin, but I played with the red and blue markers for a while because I liked the 3D effect that it gave. I'm probably touching the paper too much, I'm realizing now. Try to avoid doing that. Here's a bit of better sketch, I think. Can't tell. Yeah, I think that's, yeah. I think the camera's tilted a little, but it's fine. I think this is a better representation of me. Maybe my forehead's a little too big. But this is after I'd shaved and also I'd cut my hair. And it's just better representation overall. And I was focusing on portraits at that time. So I went on Reddit Gets Drawn and I picked a bunch of people and I was like, okay, I'll draw them with gouache or sketch them with gouache. I had a lot of fun with this one. This was the last of that session. And so I tried to bring that color variation and spontaneity to my next session. And I think this guy right here was the best of that next session of 3. And then I think I was at the MFA with my parents and Sarah, and I wound up drawing Alexander Hamilton to fill in that 4th box. I should have labeled that. Then we were down in Lawrence, Mass to meet up with Sarah's brother, and we met him at an antique mall, and I sketched a little bit in the antique mall. Partial human skull, $666. Saw a hammer, statue with a dog and a pipe, looks like. I was just playing around with things. And we must have gone and visited Sarah's sister, and she was sitting with her niece. So I did some really quick profile and head-on sketches of her niece. I'm not the greatest, but I was really just trying to loosen up. And then I got the 2 of them laying down, playing words with friends. I think I might have made Sarah's chin stick too far out this way. It might need to be brought in. Sarah's a good sport. She always lets me draw her. Then Sarah wanted to go down to the MFA and see the Ansel Adams exhibit. So we did. It was great, absolutely excellent exhibit. And I sat down in one of the larger rooms and I just sort of sketched everyone looking at things. On this wall were photographs by Arno Raphael Minkinen. Then on the far wall was all Ansel Adams. And then on this side was Abelardo Morel. Then I did some winter sketching, and I wanted to really focus on establishing my values. So in this painting, I think I posted it already, but you can really see I was focusing on a painting that was so much white that I need to clarify what was what. So I sort of sketched it out, figured out where the light was coming from, what was going to be my first dark, my second dark, etc. First light, second light. And then Sarah's aunt commissioned me for a painting as a wedding present to her husband. So she sent me a photo that actually Sarah's sister took, and I took the photo. And again, I was just establishing the composition. I wanted to keep sort of a zigzag-y feel to the painting, with the two figures really focused in the foreground because they're brought forward by the midground block of trees. This looks like it was over February break. I went to my favorite local coffee shop, D Squared Java, and I sat down and I just drew everything out in that blue pen I was talking to you about. Pretty decent sketch, probably spent too much time on it again. Winter months, I probably should be better at sketching, but it's hard. And so it was a little while before I got back out, and I guess this was probably April break before I really did some more sketching. No, before April. Yeah, somewhere time around there. Oh, and then so Sarah's grandma gave me this piggy bank. They had Sarah's grandma and grandpa had a series of piggy banks, and then when her grandpa passed away, they decided to give them out to all the nieces and nephews, and I wound up with this cool guy. I like to put him in an actual painting. He's very fun to draw. Looks like I was a little bit ambitious, and I plotted out some more squares to draw more portraits, but wound up not doing it. And then Easter. So yeah, this was towards break. So it must have been before break, and then we're getting towards break now. So this is Easter in Kennebunk. Sat down, and in that previous drawing, this was the chair that Sarah was sitting in, and I believe I was sitting in this chair. And so this is sort of a wide-angle shot panorama of the house. I think I did a good job, saturating the foreground and bringing it forward, and then leaving the other rooms unsaturated because they were full of light. So you can sort of see that play in light versus dark. So we went down to, and we took a little road trip down to Virginia for Sarah's birthday in April. And our first stop was wound up at Mount Vernon. Sarah sort of surprised me with that. And before our booked tour of the house, we had some time, so I sat down and I drew the front of the house. So in DC, we spent 4 days there, 5 days there. So it was a really awesome short trip. And we went and saw the newish botanical gardens. I drew some angel's trumpet, which I added color to later. And the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, drew the North American X-15, which was fun to draw, a little hard. The perspective was difficult. And then I think this must have been in the National Portrait Gallery. Girl Arranging Her Hair by Mary Cassatt. She had a weird face to begin with. I don't know if I made it weirder or not. I'm not the greatest sketch. And then on the last day there, we went to the bonsai museum, and I sketched this old bonsai, and the guy who was tending to it told me that this pot right here is the most expensive thing in the museum, and it's incredibly old. I forget the total number of years, but I thought it was more than 1,000. And then there's a little bit of skipping time. I mean, a month or two that I wasn't sketching. Of course, I was working on that commission for Sarah's aunt, and I was also doing some other paintings. So then it got warm out. So in June, Sarah and I went out to Odeon Point, enjoyed a nice beach day. And here's my friend John, who I was talking about earlier, rocking the sunglasses and hat. And then on the camping trip, I did a portrait of one of my other friends that at first didn't come out exactly the way I wanted it to, but I touched it up right before I started this video, and I think it looks more like him now. When I did first sketch him, he was looking awfully sad, and I still think he looks a little sad. I know you're not sad, Mike. Oh, so this was when I believe we were up in Kennebunk, and I was just hanging out, so I drew Sarah's foot, and drew a grilled cheese. Her niece was playing on a splash pad when I was drawing Sarah's foot, so I got some water on it. Nice little green splash effect. This was, like I said, we always have bouquets of flowers. This was me trying to play with watercolor pencils, and gouache all at once. I mean, a sketchbook is for trying things out. Not sure how successful it is, but I kind of liked laying down the shadow and then throwing the light blue back in with watercolor pencils. Then we went, and when we were for the 4th, when we were up in Kennebunk Port, Sarah had given me a new sketchbook, which is going to be my next sketchbook, and some new markers, so I was trying them out. The red and black are from calligraphy pens, which are definitely very cool, but I don't know if I'm going to use them to sketch with because they're a little unwieldy, but I'm going to try using them more to write down things. So I drew Sarah, and I drew her brother Matt, and then I think it was a week or two later, we went to a brewery with our other friends, and the brewery hands out bobbleheads of different characters so that the waiter or waitress can know whose table is whose and deliver the correct orders. So we got Fox Mulder, so I drew a little Fox Mulder bobblehead. Unfortunately, I was trying out new markers, and they had a little bit of bleed through, so I kind of left this page blank. But here's a succulent. This is Sarah's succulent. It's doing really well. Probably should go back outside. It's been inside for a little bit. But it was like this, and then now it's sort of grown up and it's towering up here. But I wanted to try drawing it because I really liked this curving flower, vine that was growing from it. I also did an oil of this that I just need to touch up before I'm posting. Then I went to Providence, Rhode Island with my parents, and we went to the RISD Museum. So I did a sketch of Degas, and I wrote down a bunch of other paintings that I really liked there. And then the next week, I went with my mom to the MFA and Harvard Art Museum, and I did this sketch of Madame Cezanne in a red armchair. I think I had most fun with her dress. And then, of course, more recently, we have Sarah at Diana's bath. again, I mean, if I had more time, we needed to get to the campground. Also, if I was better at watercolor, I feel like I could have established the foreground, midground, and then background a little better. But you know, working on it. Sarah's a good sport again, posing for me. And then most recently, a couple days ago, you know, I usually start during the summer. I start off my weeks at the D Square coffee shop that I told you about earlier. I don't know, I think it's just a good way to start the week. And after that, I went outside and I felt like, oh, it was a nice day. I was going to thunderstorm later, so I knew I'd be inside. So I did a quick sketch of the street, laid everything down straight in pen, and then I just did quick watercolor washes over it, trying not to be too careful with what I was doing. Kind of like the effect. It's different than the other watercolors I was doing. And that's that. Actually, no. So I have these drawings from last summer when Sarah and I went to RISD, and they're encouraging us to sketch in an auditorium as a group of people were playing instruments. So Sarah did a little sketch here, and she drew some figures over here on the back side as well. And then I drew all the people sort of watching the concert and having fun that way. Yeah, so we were there. We sat for maybe 20, 25 minutes while I sketched. Oh, and then I have a couple other things. We went and saw Disney's Aladdin. This is from last summer, going to the MFA. I saved this guy. He's still alive. Purchased for $9, and he's still kicking, though he's not as bushy as he was. Had some root rot I had to deal with. And then I've been, in the last 6 or 7 months, I've been working on applying to MFA and creative writing programs. So University of Alaska was trying to get me to go there. So they sent me a sticker. I decided not to go there, so I am not a sea wolf. But it looked like a very cool program and campus. And here I have some things I picked up at the museums. So we have Whistler's Symphony in White, one of my favorite paintings, if not my favorite painting overall. And then we have, I believe, Cassatt's Little Girl in Blue Armchair. I just love these armchairs. I'd like to do a painting of some portraits in armchairs at some point. Okay, well, I think that about wraps that up. So thanks for watching.